Hey everyone, today I want to give you guys a quick tip on how to judge the power of earth moving equipment, okay? Because, for example, a lot of times you'll have a tractor this size, right? That's 25 horsepower. Yeah, this one happens to be 38, but you can have a tractor this size that is 25 horsepower. And then you'll also look at one of these riders that sometimes also have a front loader attachment, and they are also 25 horsepower. And you're sitting there saying to yourself, hey, I've got this rider here that's a quarter of the size of this, and it's rated at the same horsepower, so, and it's like, whatever, a quarter of the price. I must be getting a real great deal on this, and I'm paying such little money. Okay, so the thing to understand is when you're comparing earth moving equipment, right, in order for a number like horsepower to mean something, you have to look at the machines within the same class, okay? So, for example, this tractor here's a 38 horsepower. On this same frame, they'll also give you a 33 horsepower engine and a 25 horsepower engine. I can compare on the same frame. I can get a sense of how much more powerful the 38 is compared to a 33 or 25, but you can't really go outside of that class. Okay, so likewise, if you're going down to one of these riders, right, one of these rider lawnmowers, and it has a number that's up, let's say 25 horsepower, you can only compare that number, right, to another rider. So you can say, okay, this rider over here has 20 horsepower, this one has 25, so the 25 is obviously more powerful than the 20, okay? Same deal works, let's say, with pickup trucks, right? My pickup truck has something is close to 300 horsepower, right? Versus, let's say, 38 horsepower here. You can't compare the 300 horsepower, to this 38 horsepower. You can only compare that to another pickup truck. So you can say that this pickup truck has 300 horsepower, that one has 400, that one has 150, and you can compare within those pickup trucks. You can get an idea of how powerful one is compared to the other. So just a quick idea to give you guys an example right there with the pickup trucks, right? So like I said, my pickup truck, which is a Toyota Tacoma, has close to 300 horsepower. Those tractors that you see in Ukraine pulling the 40-ton Russian tanks, okay, those are about 200 horsepower. Okay, so you think to yourself, wait a second, how are these Ukrainian tractors with 200 horsepower pulling these 40-ton tanks? Can my pickup truck has 300 horsepower? Does that mean that my pickup truck can also tow a tank, right? A Russian tank? Obviously not. Okay, so that number horsepower only has some significance when you're looking at it within the same class. All right. So, and the reason is because horsepower is really a measure of engine speed. Okay, horsepower is a measure of speed, not of output. Okay. So this machine over here that has 38 horsepower, it's a slow, it's a diesel, right? Compared to my truck, which is a gas engine, it's a much lower revving engine. Okay, so the pistons are longer. Okay, the shank that pushes the pistons are also longer, and it basically creates more torque with less power. Okay, so and the crankshaft itself, and the crankshaft is I think the easiest way for you guys to visualize this, right? So if you've got a crankshaft that's only this thick compared to a crankshaft that's this thick, so when the shaft comes down and pushes, it's going to have less torque on a crank that's this wide compared to a crank that's this wide, because the edge of this is further from the center, so it's going to create more torque. I mean, to give you a different example, okay, so this ratchet over here, right? Okay, if I lengthen this, okay, I'm going to have a lot more torque. I'm traveling a longer distance, or I'm going slower, but I have more leverage. If I shorten this, okay, I'm now able to move faster, right? But I have less torque. Okay, so again, remember, horsepower is a measure of speed, not a measure of of power output, which is not to say that horsepower number is completely useless, right? It is useful if you're comparing within the same class, right? You're comparing the horsepower of one tractor to horsepower of another. But once you go outside of that class, numbers meaningless. So this tractor here, 38 horsepower, right, weighs about 6,000 pounds. The backhoes that you see working on the roads, let's say they come in at 100 horsepower. So you're like sitting there scratching your head. Okay, so are those backhoes on the road 3 times more powerful than this? And the answer is no. They're like 10 times more powerful than this machine here. If you're looking at a machine and you're not familiar with that class, the best number to look at to get a sense of how powerful the machine is to look at the weight of the machine. Okay, the weight of the machine is going to give you a better indication of how powerful the machine is. So, for example, this 6,000 pound tractor here is going to be a lot more powerful than, let's say, one of those riders that weighs 1,000 pounds, right? So even though the horsepower number might be close, right? You know, the fact that this machine is 6 times heavier than that, it's likely that this is going to be 6 times more powerful because of that weight. So that's a better indication of how powerful one machine is versus another. So if I was to look at excavators, right? I've done some work with excavators, but I'm not. It's not something I have committed to memory. But so when I look at an excavator, I don't look at the horsepower. If I'm looking to rent out an excavator, what I know is, do I want a mini excavator which comes in at about 7,000 pounds? Do I want to go do I want to go up to 15,000 pounds? Okay. Do I want to go up to 35,000 pounds? Now that's a good size. Now we're definitely out of the mini excavator territory. Now we're into, a serious size excavator. Or do you want to go up to something like a 50,000 pound excavator? Those are usually the 50,000 pounds, usually the excavators that you see doing like large scale construction projects. Okay. So the weight of an earth moving machine is a better indication of how powerful it is, and it's a better way to, without knowing that much about machines, like if I'm going to look at let's say a bulldozer, right, on tracks, and I haven't had that much experience looking at different bulldozers. So if I'm looking at 2 different bulldozers here, rather than have somebody tell me, well, this one's this many horsepower and that one's that much, I want to say, how heavy is that machine? How heavy is that machine? How heavy is that machine? That would be the fastest way that I get a true understanding of how powerful one machine is versus the other. Okay. Now there's still issues of efficiency, so some might be a little bit better than the other, or one might be more efficient than the other, but the weight is going, especially if you got one that's a lot older versus one that's newer. But that's the area that I would go to, right? If I'm looking at earth moving equipment that I'm not that familiar with, I want to know what the weight is, and then I can very quickly compare the weight of one versus the weight of the other, and know what I'm working with. Okay, so hope this video was useful, and I'll talk to you all soon.